So you keep
Post
following
this.
the course.
Just wanted to deal with.
Why? They say anything?
So we're heading out to YouTube, you guys, just FYI.
Okay.
Yeah, so my neighbors also fix their road.
I could have done it cheaper.
So we're live now, recording,
No, we're not recording yet.
but we're fixing not muted.
We're not.
We're not muted.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, we did the foundation walls.
Headlamp in my car.
Yes, need to do something. Finish your education and move on. Okay, thanks, Stevie. Okay. At this time, I'd like to call the public hearing of Bonner County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. The date is October 15th. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. We're located in the third floor conference room of the County Commissioners, the Bonner County Administration Building, 1500 Highway 2, Sandpoint, Idaho. At this time, I'd like everybody to stand and say the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Get the roll call of our commissioners, starting on my left, please.
Commissioner Linscott,
Commissioner Reed.
Commissioner Frankenbach, Commissioner Davis,
Commissioner Grasso.
And Commissioner Bailey as chair. Is there anyone in the audience in need of special assistance to see or hear or participate in the proceedings? Let's see. And we have the hearing procedures up on the screen, please. Do that. Would staff please introduce themselves?
So I'm Dalton Allerton, Planning Director.
Elizabeth Johnson, admin. Jeannie Welter, administrative manager. Jennifer Hussain, admin.
And we have our guest tonight, Bill Wilson from the prosecutor's office. Thank you. You're welcome. I guess we have one change to the agenda. We've added June 4th minutes of that meeting. And are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, thank you. Okay, so did everybody have a chance to read the 2 sets of minutes? Any changes?
Commissioner Glass, my only question would be on the June 4th, we note that I attend via Zoom webinar. And on the October 1st, it just states that I'm in attendance. I don't know if that needs to be corrected or changed.
Jeannie said,
Doesn't matter. Okay, okay.
okay, we're okay. Okay, so I'll sign those up. Okay. Is there any old business that we need to go to? Okay. All right. So being so, we'll move on to our first file here. I'd like everybody to turn off their cell phones or put them on silent, please. Okay. So it is, like I said, it's November 15th. We're now at 5:33, and we're at 1500 Highway 2, Sandpoint, Idaho. All right. Are we going to put the?
I don't have the hearing, but I can go over it.
Oh, okay, it's all right. Fine, that's fine. Okay, so our first file is an amendment to Bonner County Revised Code, Title 12, Section 412, Density and Dimensional Standards for Suburban, Commercial, Industrial, Rural Service Center, Recreation, and Alpine Village Zone, and requirements or exemptions. And the applicant is Bonner County, and Mr. Overton, you may proceed, please.
Thank you.
Oh, I did not, I'm sorry, I missed that, but we do have a quorum. Is that what
Any
you asked?
conflicts of interest?
Oh, conflicts of interest. We don't.
Very good. So this is an amendment to Table 4.2. The proposed change here is broke down to specifically what's being changed instead of the entire thing. Currently in these zones, and I don't know how to move that over there, but the zones, suburban, commercial, industrial, rural service center, recreation, and Alpine Village. Those are currently those are the zones that we're talking about tonight. And you see what the minimum lot size is where all the urban services are available. As you go down this table, if there is urban water only, right now, the requirement is that you can have a 2-acre lot. If you have urban water, you can have a 2-acre lot across the board. If you have a community LSAS, large soil absorption system, it used to be 1.5 acres, or currently is 1.5 acres. If you have a community drain field and individual well, it's currently 2 acres. And the proposal is to change all these to 1 acre. Urban water is defined as publicly or privately maintained water supply and distribution systems. And so it could be a private shared well agreement between property owners in order to meet the urban water requirement. So if you had a 5-acre parcel and they wanted to put 4 lots on that 5-acre parcel and they put in a shared well system, they could do that with this definition of urban water. Another system is the large soil absorption system, which is designed to receive 2,500 gallons of wastewater or more a day, including where the total wastewater flow from the entire proposed project exceeds 2,500 gallons per day. this system is pretty rare in this county. I don't know that if one has ever been approved or used since I've been here. It's a pretty rare system, but that's what a community LSAS is. That system is approved by DEQ. It's not approved locally. They have to go and have DEQ approve that system. There's lots of engineering involved. A community drain field, we recently had a subdivision develop 8 lots and put in a community drain field, which is each lot has an individual septic tank. Instead of having leach fields on every lot, they share a drain field. In this particular case, the drain field is on one of the lots, and all of the septic tanks flow to that one lot where the drain field is. So that's the way this is currently. Now, the standards that we're including with this is that 19 new lots created through any land division process shall include the sanitary restriction lift. Well, we're only talking about new lots created, right? Because this ordinance hasn't been put into place yet. So as somebody, and the only way you can create lots is through a land division, whether it's a minor land division or a short plat or a regular plat, one of those different ways, or a family exemption. But through any of the land division process, and that's why it says any land division process, is because through any process, if you're going to split lots down to this size, you're going to have the sanitary restriction lift in place on that plat. And so that's what number 19 says. And that means that when they go out and create, say again, they have 5 acres and they want to create 4 lots, that means that they're going to have to go out and test all 4 of those lots, and Panhandle Health is going to have to sign off that each one of those lots can handle a septic system, and they will denote that on the plat and sign off on that on the plat, that each lot can handle a septic system. Along with that, the benefit to that then is that when they go to PhD for that approval, they'll also be able to understand the setbacks, where the setbacks are required to the well. There are setbacks from a septic tank to a well. They're not as great, I don't believe, as setbacks from a leach field to a well. But there are still setbacks from a septic tank to a well. So this will allow the design of that lot to be well thought out, well created. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, I just had a question. Just when you're done.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Well, as I read that, new lots created through any land division, and this would be, what's kicking this is the suburban, commercial, industrial, rural service center, recreation, alpine village zones. There are actually some large parcels that are zoned suburban and recreational right now. And as long as they're maintaining more than that 1 acre, a 2.5 acre, or a 5 acre, or a 10 acre, I don't think they should have to have that sanitary lift for any land division process. There should be a trigger mechanism if you're less than so many acres for that, because as it reads right now, I can think of several parcels in that suburban zone.
So this, if you'll notice that the notes are only tied to the urban water, LSAS, or community drain field, where these lots are 1 acre.
Okay, so if they're more than 1 acre, it doesn't apply.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
The second note that we added is community LSAS, or community drain field may be located on a common lot or tract of land. This probably should say, but shall not be located on a residential lot. What we were trying to go here with is that the drain field should not be on a residential lot. It should be on its own lot. And the LSAS should be on its own lot. So the word may need to be changed from individual to residential. You'll consider that as an amendment. how does this match with the county comprehensive plan? In the county comprehensive plan under the land use section, Bonner County proposed to establish the following density ranges, and this is all directly taken from the land use section. 0 to 2.5 acres for areas served by urban light water, sewer services, good transportation networks, fire protection districts. I can read this all to you. This is basically allowing for densities and lot size minimums from 0 to 2.5 acres. There's no specific definition as to when 2.5 or smaller should be provided, other than that it be close to areas within areas of city impact. Sewer and water services are not available, steeper slopes prevail. These areas have been designated for lower densities. Included in this, so the recreation communities where they have sewer districts. So it basically defines areas where these are appropriate, which is where the designation, where the zone definitions come from. The next section of this same land use section in the comp plan talks about 1 to 5 acre for areas on or near the fringes of city impact, which may be within fire districts, sewer water districts, joining higher density developed areas, slopes or level to moderate 0 to 10%. The challenge is that when they created the zones to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, they didn't consider the fact that the comprehensive plan does allow for 1 acre lots in both of those situations. And so what we're saying here is that what this proposal is saying is that we're going to allow for 1 acre lots as long as it meets these requirements that we are concerned about. And we are going to test and check for those, make sure that those standards are met before we allow for that size density. But the density should be allowed because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The natural resource goal, Bonner County will protect its water resources by requiring adequate sewer treatment systems. I think by adding these requirements, the sanitary restriction lift, that we're meeting this goal to identify areas that can handle this type of density. Let's face it, if the land could not handle this type of density, it won't be allowed. PhD won't sign off on that sanitary restriction lift, and that development will not move forward. Again, the land use goal, Bonner County intends to balance and integrate its land use policies, proposed land use map with the components of the comp plan to encourage the community to grow while retaining its rural character and protecting its unique natural resources. Now, why did I put this in here as justification for this change? Because we are getting a lot of pressure to split down our large parcels. And we're also getting a lot of pushback as we go out and do these sub-area plans from people wanting to protect their large acre parcels. And so what we're trying to do is match the comp plan, match the zoning ordinance with the comp plan and allow for smaller lots around the cities where services are provided and prevent or try to prevent the continuing erosion of our large acre lots into smaller lots. So right now, the minimum lot size in the county is 5 acre minimum. We do have 10 and 20 acre minimum requirements, but we are being pushed to continue to rezone properties down to 5 acre minimums. People are continually trying to request zone changes to change to 5 acre minimums, and there's lots and lots of land being pushed that direction. So what areas does this affect? I'm going to show you the zone map in just a minute. The suburban zone is indicated by yellow. The recreation is indicated by red. The alpine area is orange. The alpine zone is, Alpine Village zone is basically Schweitzer Mountain. That's all it is. That's the only place it's laid down. Commercial and industrial, brown and pink, and rural service center is purple. Rural service center is like a neighborhood commercial zone. They call it rural service center in our zoning ordinance. So those are the minimum lot sizes right now with all urban services. Now, if we took all of the zoning, current zoning for suburban, we've not done this analysis for the entire county, but if we took all of the zoning and it all had urban services and it all split down to, 10,000 square foot lots, I mean, it won't because there's so many variables that prevent that. But if you did that math equation, it would create thousands of new lots in the county. And so again, it wouldn't because there's so many variables. Lots are already certain sizes, roads wouldn't accommodate it. There's slopes and wetlands involved. There's all kinds of questions on why that wouldn't happen. Let's go back. So I wanted to. So I want to show you a map. So this is the zone map, and of course this isn't all the way. Priest Lake is up on the top, but I think it does go all the way down to the southwest Bonner County. So the yellow is suburban, and you'll notice that the yellow is focused around city center: Sandpoint, Ponderay, Kootenai, Priest River, Old Town. There's some out. It looks like towards Laclede a little bit. There's some out in Sagal and Coquilala a little bit, some suburban out that way. The red is the recreation districts, and the recreation is located, you see where the red is around, and wherever there's red, there is most likely, not always, but there's most likely a sewer district nearby or in the middle of that. So wherever you see red, there's probably a sewer district. Bottle Bay, Garfield Bay, I can't name them. Bowden, water and sewer, Ponderay, Kootenai, Ponderay sewer district. Wherever there's red, that's recreation. The Alpine Village you see in the orange, you're not going to see brown and pink unless I zoom in on it, unless you have really good eyes, because the brown and pink are just in specific single spots. There's not big areas zoned. Even the purple, you may not see purple unless I zoom in on purple, because they're just single lots usually, or a small cluster of lots in an area. They're not big. So see here through the suburban that's commercial, and then that purple is rural service center out in the Sagal area. So we're not talking about huge area. So the blues are all 5s and 10s, and the greens, light and dark, are 10 and 20s. And so we're not talking about those areas of the county. We're only talking about those colors that I brought up. So, and if I turn on areas of city impact, you'll see that that most of these are inside areas of city impact. So to see the red lines, these are areas of city impact. I just colored in the cities, kind of hard to tell still, but where the cities are. But that shows you where the city ends, the areas of city impact. Most of these suburban some of the recreation, most of the suburban areas are in areas of city impact. So that's the areas that we're talking about affecting. We're not talking about affecting, large areas of the county out and about. Additionally, you can't just go and rezone to suburban without these urban services being soon to be addressed. Okay, in order to expand a suburban area, there would have to be an intent that perhaps in the future, urban services would become available. So agency comments, these folks, no comment. Independent Highway District sent in a comment that said, see previous comment. I'm not sure which previous comment they were talking about. They didn't give any indication. So I couldn't tell you. These other agencies, no comment. City of Kootenai, appropriate comment. Reduction of the lot size minimums to 1 acre where urban water only will increase the density in the Kootenai ACI and will impact city services. That's a fair comment. The one thing that we are doing with cities right now is we're asking them to renegotiate the area city impact agreements, where we are offering the opportunity for the cities to become more involved in the area of city impact. So while this may impact it on a short term, it will likely not impact it on a long term based on the renegotiation of those areas of city impact. They're going to want these questions addressed as they continue to grow into those areas of city impact. So, and so then they said Panhandle Health should be asked to weigh in, which they did. PhD was a little confused with our language. No surprise, it's ours to interpret. We understand that the sanitary restriction lift needs to be a part of each land division process. They just want to make sure that it's a part of it early enough in the process so they don't have folks upset about having to get that done. We understand that it'll be part of our application process that they have to have that sanitary restriction lift in place coming in. And then they sent out the reminder that there are definitely areas in the county that, based on site conditions, smaller parcels not necessarily the answer. Which is why, I mean, the one subdivision I was talking about that has 8 lots with the community drain field, those are 5-acre lots. There are 8 5-acre lots that, because of the wetland, each individual lot could not handle a septic system. So they put in a community drain field on the one lot that had enough room to handle it. And then there's CC&Rs and there's restrictions in place that each house can only be such a certain size based on the size of that community drain field. And so my point is that the market addresses a lot of what we're trying to accomplish. As we allow people to have a little bit more freedom, look at their land a little bit differently, the market will address those situations. Because the bottom line is, if there is no water and there is no perking, then the land's not going to develop that way because it can't handle it, and people won't. It just won't happen. So I get that there's unique circumstances out there occasionally, but they're not as common as some predict. So as we analyze this, again, 1-acre lots apply only to specific zones designated for small lot sizes anyway. New lots created will require sanitary restriction lift. The drain field or LSAS must be on a separate parcel. The proposal is consistent with the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. So if you choose to move forward with this, I'd ask in your motion that you include the words adding that community LSAS system. When we advertised it for this meeting, we included only community drain field and urban water. And I think that adding community LSAS was intended, it just didn't make it into the notice. back to the specificity, whatever that word is. Specificity.
And Milton, there's one other item I think you want us to change the verbiage to residential lot.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you can do that by saying as amended, right?
I think so, yeah. It's obviously it's in the record, so so long as it's reflected in the new draft that it's transmitted to the board.
I apologize.
Yeah,
I apologize, Milton. I'm still reading that.
please.
And because I'm bouncing back and forth from our current, and of course, we don't have a number 19 in there.
You're right.
And so as I see that, because it's dimensional and density and dimensional standards, new lots created through any land division process shall include sanitary restriction lift when they are in the suburban, commercial, industrial, those 6 land use designations.
So that note is triggered only if they're gonna have urban water, community LSAS, or community drain field.
Okay.
So your question is noted and maybe appropriate that, say they're gonna come to us and say, hey, we're gonna put in a subdivision in the suburban zone with 2.5 acre lots, and we're gonna put in an LSAS system, but they're 2.5 acre lots. I think I would agree that plat needs to have sanitary restriction lift based on that note and based on those requirements.
Because currently as a 2.5, they wouldn't have to have a sanitary restriction lift.
Right. But
That's where I'm going with it.
you're right. But
Or what about the example you were talking about?
But that
where they're
is,
5 acres?
but that really is though, the sanitary restriction lift. If they have to get a community LSAS or a community drain field, they have to work with Panhandle Health or DEQ anyway. And so those would still have to get signed off. So why not have it on the plat that way? Right? The only catch would be the urban water.
So if you don't have any of those, you can go down to 2.5 acre parcels without having a sanitation restriction lift?
You can go to any size.
Okay, and not require a sanitary restriction lift until the trigger mechanism is the urban water, LSAS or community drain field.
No, the note on 19 says new lots created through any land division. So the 19 note 19 is with urban water.
So then they wouldn't.
So then they would.
Okay,
They would have to get the sanitary restriction lift if they were going to provide urban water.
but if they're not, if they're 2.5 acres,
And they're not going to provide urban water, correct?
then you wouldn't have to.
Right.
Okay.
So that's my presentation. Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Milton or staff?
Yes, Commissioner Davis, I'm not sure I've got a question.
Just a minute, please.
I'm just trying to figure out, you talked about pressure to divide the larger lots down. But this isn't dealing with those because we're in these zones.
You're correct.
Suburban, commercial, and so forth. So any idea since 2008, I guess, how many suburban lots have gone to 2 acres? How many commercial lots have gone to 2 acres? How many industrial lots have gone to 2 acres? Now, did it not work well with the 2 acre standard? Or the 1.5 acre standard? Or haven't there been any? But that's what's on the books, and it's been there since, I think this is the change that was made in 2008.
Right.
So what's the history of, in these zones, those acreages? Have they not been successful?
Well, I didn't say that they haven't been successful. I wouldn't say they haven't been successful. I'm just saying that allowing for a little more density would encourage the development, this type of development closer to town. We've had some, I can't tell you how many minor land divisions that have resulted in 2-acre lots in the suburban zone. The most recent one that I'm aware of is out there behind water storage units on the way to the county highway department.
Right.
There's been 4 or 5 created in there, but they're getting ready to create another 4 or 5 2-acre lots. And they do have urban water. But the soils could handle possibly.
For either a community drain field or an LSAMC. Yeah.
So again, the intent is to encourage development to go this direction, right? To move closer to these areas. It also provides another product.
Yeah, I would just say, Don was asking what it was prior. I have the 1995 code right here, and for all the transitional recreation, urban and suburban zone, it was 1 acre minimum where urban services were not available, 12,000 square foot where they were. So we used to have it as 1 acre. What we're looking at here is exactly what we had until, I can't remember if it was 2008 or maybe even just prior we got it. There was an ordinance that passed that. We've been there since. And I guess the process or the thought behind this is if we're going back and including Panhandle Health District prior to splitting them that small, I don't really see a problem with it because we had a couple of files. Marty had one in front of us. It was between Priest River and Newport. And he wanted to go down to a 1 acre lot over there, but it was demonstrated that the septic and the well were distant. Those were already in place. They had that 100-foot minimum separation. And that was the intent back then, was to make sure those septics and tanks were 100 feet apart. And if you had a long, skinny lot, that your septic was not going to preclude your neighbor from putting a well in. So if we do it this way, with Panhandle Health, I think that check and balance is in place.
The one subdivision that comes to mind is Granite Ridge, where they have water supply and the community drain field is down at the bottom of the field across from Schweitzer's parking lot. And those are 1 acre lots up in there. And so for the harder buildable areas, it works well for them as long as they have water.
Right. Yep. Yeah, right now this is possible through a PUD, which is just very expensive and extensive process to go through.
Cost of business.
Well, it is.
Any more questions for Mr. Milton? So we have Doug Gunther on the phone. We'll move on to public comment.
I'm just listening. That's all.
Okay, you're not going to make a comment?
Nope.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience would like to make a comment? State your name and address, please.
My name is Susan Lavender. I live at 3077 North Trinity Road. And I'm brand new to town. So I'm just trying to understand these new rules and worried about water and in the Selly Valley, and I just don't know, do you have like a study? Is there an aquifer? I'm worried that you're not really defining urban water here. What's the alternative? Is there also rural water systems? Or I'm just, maybe you could just educate me. I guess what I'm worried about is that there's just gonna be a bunch of wells poked into the ground and
Straws in the bathtub.
then, like, is that gonna make my well run dry? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, do you have a study like that?
We don't. And
Okay.
we're not going up into the Selly Valley. I showed that suburban zoning doesn't go up into the Selly Valley. It just goes around, it's around the city of Kootenai, but it's not further up.
That's the track.
And so urban water is defined as a shared well system, basically a private shared well system. It can handle 2 to, how many ever lots, 20 lots, whatever. Well, 12 before it goes regulated, or 9, or what is it? I don't know.
It's the number of people that serve,
Right.
and it's the duration of the service under DEQ. So that's what I was wondering is, the comparison between the DEQ well standards and this definition. This one doesn't fall anywhere near, because it's 25 people for X days a year is a certain type of system, and the public system is, again, so many people served, not the number of lots, because that doesn't mean a thing.
Right.
It's the number of people served and for a certain duration of the year. So, yeah, it is interesting. The other day I pulled up the DEQ or Water Resources well log information. I was looking at Selly Valley. There's areas where, and I don't recall right here next to the suburban zone, what the well log showed for flow from those wells, but the flows are all over the map.
All throughout the county.
But quite often throughout Selly, south, east, and north, the flows are pretty minimal, 1 to 2 gallons a minute. Over by Highway 95 and the Sand Creek area, they can be up to 200 gallons a minute. But out here in the valley, they're predominantly lower. And I don't recall that there is a defined aquifer anywhere in Selly. I think
But
it's just.
again, we're not going up into the
cell.
Selly area.
True, so
So,
I'm just addressing the question is not,
yeah,
because that was one of the things, I think the city mentioned about hitting the aquifer. Well, I don't believe there really is one described or defined that's recognized.
The city of Kootenai is serviced by the city of Sandpoint
Right.
water system,
So anyway,
along with the city of Ponderay.
So if I may, can I just follow up on that, since I asked the
Yes,
question?
ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, so you don't have any study, you don't know how much water is where or how much is coming from anywhere. And you're going to basically double the density in some areas, right? Closer to towns. Is that correct? Do I understand that?
well, allow for it. We're going to allow for it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. We're just going to allow for it. So I don't know that it's that intense of a use that would require a study at this point. There's just not, we're not growing in huge numbers, right? We're just not. We're not experiencing exponential growth. If we were, we would have big companies in here wanting to put in water systems and sewer systems, but we don't. So we're just trying to address growth as it's coming in the smaller numbers that it is. There just isn't, at this point, a reason to go out and do these intense studies. Not that they're not being done by other agencies, they're just not being done by us.
So there is no plan as far as if somebody comes in and puts in 20 new acres, 20 new lots or something, and the lot next to it well dries up because they did that, there isn't any plan for that, correct? I just wanted to make sure that I knew that. No, okay.
what was your first name again?
Susan,
Susan. Yeah, Susan, as far as I know, and I've been keeping in contact with DEQ the last couple of years, we have what they refer to as nitrate priority areas in Bonner County right now. And that's pretty much what you're looking at with septic systems and those wells is the nitrate loading of it. Now, a standard operating, I have a documentation about it right here. A standard septic system work is going to go ahead and eliminate 90% of all nitrates. And so those aren't really feeding much nitrates back into the water. I understand what you're referring to. The average house, if I'm not mistaken, is 250 to 300 gallons per day water usage. And so if you have a 5 gallon a minute well, that thing's pumping just for 1 hour during the day. It's supplying the water that house is needing. And then additionally, that's put back in through the septic system. And so it's getting regenerated, so to speak. It's going to be going ahead and percolate back through the soil, cleanse itself. Like I said, we don't have any nitrate priority areas in Bonner County.
So along with what he's saying, there's two types of wells. There's what you call mining for water, which you drill down into a pocket of water. Like if you're in a heavy rocky area or granite area. And the other one's a constant aquifer. Okay. And so like, we have two wells at our house. We have a deep well that's in a constant, and then we have a subsurface, a sandpoint well. Okay. I know there's, like we were talking about, there's different parts of Selly Valley, ag wells down towards Odin, that area. There's high production wells there that aren't being used anymore. On French Road, there's one that's 65. On the north end towards Colburn, on that side, 200-300 gallons a minute. So it differs, like Mr. Overton said, throughout the.
so there haven't been a lot of reports of that happening where somebody's well dries up because somebody else is tapped.
Where did you move from?
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah. Where it costs $35,000 for one water for one house.
Yes, nobody understands.
Yeah. So.
You're not there.
Hopefully you never will.
So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
All right, sir, do you have any questions at all? Okay. And any more questions for Milton? Okay. All right. Okay, with that, we'll call for a discussion and deliberations. My fellow commissioners.
The greatest impact for me was to see the map and the areas and the color zones. What I walked in with and the ideas I had were completely changed by actually being able to see that and visualize it.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I think with Mr. Davis, with the other parts of this that come into play to get a 1 acre zone, to get a 1 acre lot in these zones. And the health district activity with the searching for and finding a parcel, not a residential parcel, could support a community drain field or an LSAS. There's certain protections that I stop short of calling them guarantees, but that this can be handled correctly. And it certainly isn't going to be wholesale around the county.
That's correct.
As I've pointed out time and time again, in the past, with past zoning, there have been many half-acre and 1 acre lots created in the county over the decades. Some of those haven't worked out. Some, and most of them have, as far as I can tell. We rarely hear from those people who are on those lots at these hearings, which is unfortunate. I'd like to put out an invitation to all, anybody who owns a 1 acre or smaller lot, come and talk with us. That's the other part of it. There is demand. Those small lots wouldn't be occupied if there wasn't. So.
Sure, I have a comment. Matt,
We have
Dave?
more comment?
Suzanne, you done?
No,
Okay. All right, so I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I move to recommend approval of this file AM 0014-20 to the Board of County Commissioners, amending the sections of Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code as presented, including allowing 1 acre minimums when the community LSAS is provided, as amended in this hearing based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. This action does not result in the taking of private property.
Okay, Mr. Linscott has made a motion. I call for a second.
Commissioner Reeve, I second that.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, along with that amendment are the 2 notes, 19 and 20, on the table. So note 20 needs to be amended to say that it's any residential lot, and I believe it should say parcel as well, because a lot outright says it's in a subdivision, and the parcel is not in a subdivision. So if the maker of the motion and the second could amend it that way.
Okay, Mr. Linscott, would you reread your motion?
Yes, I'd like to go ahead and amend that motion by adding on item number 20, community LSAS or community drain field may be located on a common lot or tract of land, but should not be located on any residential lot or parcel.
And I'll second that, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that'll be the end of our public hearing. Thank you both for attending. And you, Mr. Linscott, too. We're going to go on to executive session. Thank you. Okay, with that, would somebody
Mr. Chairman,
read us an executive session, please?
Commissioner Davis, pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-206-1A, I request that we go into executive session to consider hiring.
Okay, we've had a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
You guys, in order to go into exec session, you need to do a roll call vote. So you'll have to, you can't just do an aye. You'll need to ask for individual
Okay,
commissioners in order to do that.
okay, roll call vote from my right, please.
Commissioner Glasso, aye.
Commissioner Davis, aye.
Commissioner Frankenbach, aye.
Commissioner Reeve, aye.
Commissioner Linscott, aye.
Okay, motion passes.
There it is.
Thank you, sir.
Doing it wrong all this time?
We do enough of those with the Three Stooges. It's just-
That's true, that's the way reading the paper.
Okay, so you have something for us and we have something for you.
Okay. We're out of executive session. We had
All
a
right.
discussion and now we have council.
You back on? Okay, thank you, Gene. We're out of executive session. No decisions were made. Next on the agenda is open line discussion.
Okay, an open line is
So this is another,
free for all.
well, I mean,
Just kidding.
I didn't actually realize that that you guys had something on your agenda called open line. And
Do we or
Since
don't we?
2008.
since a long time. So doesn't mean, I mean, there's some gray area here, but I would, in the future, I would like to see a little more specificity on see, now you got me all screwed up.
Spell it.
Be more
So
specific.
the term agenda is not actually defined in the Open Meeting Act, but it's generally understood that it requires a certain granular detail to help people understand what's going to be discussed. And so to simply have an open call, it's not ideal. Not saying that it is absolutely incorrect, and it's been working for a long time, so it's just my opinion. But as we go forward for future agendas, if you have particular questions, specific questions, I'd like to see those kind of split out so everybody knows. And just selfishly, then I kind of know what you guys are going to do, and I can have a little more opportunity to prepare too.
So could we just call it commissioners updating what's going on or something simple or?
Well, that's still not, I don't think so.
You want,
So there's if you guys, there's a good resource that you got. I don't know if you guys have had it, access to it before, but the same one that the Attorney General's office puts forth manuals, guides for different topics. One of them is public records, regulatory takings, and one of them is open meetings. And the example that they use for this situation is you can't just have something on an agenda that says director reports. You know, you can't just have something that's just open-ended. It doesn't tell anybody what is really going to be addressed. So I know that this is, kind of last minute. If I had known about that portion of the agenda for this meeting, I probably would have said, let's change it. But it hasn't really, there's been no indication that it's been challenged or that it is illegal. I would just, out of an abundance of caution, like to see a little more,
Typically,
attention to that.
typically it's just discussing with staff what's going on.
Exactly. I know.
In our own stuff, we might have some comments, but I don't recall any meeting in 5 years now where the public spoke up during our open line. They usually leave the room and they're gone and the
Right.
case is gone.
And I might be, I guess that's my job, is to, to be
Err
the
on
worst
side of
case.
caution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to worry about the worst case scenario. So I'm not casting criticism at anybody. I'm just saying maybe we
Is that,
we
the
can
open
kind of
meeting
tweak
law
our procedure going
talks
forward.
about agendized items.
Mhm.
They're on the agenda, you can amend the agenda.
We can always amend the agenda.
Right.
Sure. I mean, amending the agenda either at the meeting or within 24 hours, you need to have a prerequisite showing of like an emergency to do that. But it's not difficult to amend the agenda, especially if it's more than 48 hours before the meeting. You simply publish a new agenda and you're fine. But I'd like to see if we could try to start doing that a little bit better. I'd like that.
When you say publish, because that leads me into another question. What is the definition of publish?
Publish, let's see, the code says it needs to be just for meetings. Like, so there's two kinds of publish notice for basic meetings. One is the time and date, the time and place, the agenda, and then the content, right? The meeting time, place, and agenda. So the first one is typically 5 days, and then the second one is 48 hours, is 2 days. That, I think the code says, and now I'm shooting from the hip again, I didn't want to do that. It needs to be posted in conspicuous places throughout the county. So usually there'll be one downstairs, in the front, in the foyer, or what do you want to call that? And then there's usually one at the courthouse too, right? And then we also we're not required to do this, but we'll post it on the website, or Facebook page, whatever we do. I think that satisfies the posting
So
requirement.
publishing doesn't necessarily mean in a newspaper.
Right. So for these types of things. So for when you guys are sitting in your, quasi judicial, like say you're reviewing a conditional use permit, something like that, then the Local Land Use Planning Act requires publishing notice for that hearing, but that's what, 15 days? And that has to be prior to the hearing and it has to be in a newspaper. So it's a different source of authority.
So this comprehensive plan is not quasi judicial, it's legislative.
Correct.
So it doesn't have to be published in the newspaper. So the definition when the Attorney General and the Regulatory Takings Act guidelines is stating that X, Y, and Z must be followed prior to it being published for public comment.
I don't know that.
Well, our code requires that. I mean, this tonight was an amendment.
Right.
And yeah, it has to be published. The notice has to be published
Right.
in
Well,
the newspaper.
where I'm going with this is, according to the Regulatory Takings Act guideline, before any proposed legislation, as far as a comprehensive, it must be reviewed with legal staff. And that's that.
I don't know that. I'll take your word for it, but I just said.
Yeah, I have it in that letter there as well. And that's from the guidelines. It says we must do that. And so that was my first question was, the Sully Valley published and had an open meeting on this, yet it wasn't reviewed. Pardon?
It was a workshop. It wasn't a
No,
public hearing.
It was a public comment. It's
A workshop.
a workshop, but here, let me read you the statute in here.
Well, he's,
So is the general question, should there be a published like newspaper published notice before you guys consider this type of thing? Is that the question?
Yeah, because I gotta find this here. Go on.
so while he's digging, I have two questions. One is, and I just want to bring Greg here. November 5th, Milton, are we going to be able to use the room downstairs?
Yes.
Even though the election's not going to be,
November 10th.
For the,
no, November 5th.
yeah, for the mining, yeah.
Oh, for the mining
Okay,
case.
so they'll be out of the room, hopefully?
Yeah, we'll be downstairs.
Okay. And then, given that, then on our agenda for November 5th,
I wouldn't, do you know that for a fact? It's gonna be out of there?
The room is available downstairs.
Okay,
Bill and Tim.
Got it.
so then on November 5th agenda, we'll need to agendize I want to discuss how we're going to handle the workshop November 10th. Lay some guidelines down.
So we'll put that in.
So we just need to put that under open line.
Okay, there you go. That's perfect. That's how it should work. You just want to put a line item in there that says discussion. Even make it an action item if you just want to be extra careful. Discussion decision on setting procedure for November 10th workshop. Bam.
Good.
Now we're doing it good. I like that.
All right, fine.
I did find it.
All right. Let's have it.
Okay, this is regulatory takings guideline from Attorney General. Each agency in local government must also use this process to assess the impacts of proposed regulations before the agency publishes the regulations for public comment.
That presupposes a process that I don't like use it. Well, what's the process? I don't know what you mean.
Well, that was the question. Sully came up with their plan.
Mm-hmm.
That was always been my question in my mind. Should we have looked at that with legal counsel, which this says we're supposed to do, before it gets published for public comment?
Okay, well, I'll have to reserve judgment on that and I'll take a look at it and try to get back to you guys. It's the best I can offer tonight.
And maybe I can kind of follow up or lead a question to that. Now, maybe it's a different animal since we formed these committees to do what the Land Use Planning Act says we could to help us determine the comprehensive plan update for those areas. That's all right out of the code. But in general, if any governing body puts together a committee or hires a consultant and requires a body of work from them, how is that document, that report, how is that handled by the body? Is it, I mean, we're not at the stage yet where that is our recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
Right. You guys haven't even taken it up yet.
No. So it's I don't know what it is. I think that's what Matt's referring to.
He's saying,
What is that?
if there's a publication requirement, and if so, at what point?
Well,
Does it
and
kick in?
even just,
There you go.
so if the Board of County Commissioners, for instance, years ago, different board, but still the Board of County Commissioners, formed the Natural Resources Committee. The Natural Resource Committee took a number of years to come up with their report. And their report, there was a lot of discussion about how to deal with that. They brought it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We determined that it had nothing to do directly with land use, the Land Use Planning Act. So we had kind of a no comment to the Board of County Commissioners. Kind of just, it's one thing if it's a technical report that a board requires of a consultant or something, you just take it in, you review it, you collect the findings, whatever, and deal with the outcome. But it doesn't seem to be the same with this action, with this document that any of these committees are producing. So are there any guidelines anywhere that instruct us how to handle the work, the document that these committees are producing?
Okay. Good. Well, I'm assuming that most of is going to be, well, I will do my best to answer those questions for you guys.
So Bill, my thoughts were that we don't take up a lot of time is once all 4 subcommittees are done. If it's works with the group of us and probably you and some staff, we would do a Saturday workshop and take care of all of them at one time. And as we receive them, we'll make our comments and we'll send them, we'll start that process. Everything goes into a file and we'll open that file up once everybody has made their comments, the cities and the departments. And then we'll take that day and I think it'll be more of a cost saving to the taxpayers to do it that way and to us versus dealing with it on 4 Thursdays.
Right.
It's just, the only challenge with that, if I may, is that it's, I mean, Priest Lake could be a year away.
Well, if it's,
And so
maybe we could handle 2 at a time.
Well, and that's a good suggestion. One, from a consistency standpoint. You know, we've got to handle these things procedurally the same way.
Correct.
But it's still, these are reports essentially. These are our findings and our reports and our suggestions. They're not even, these committees are not even an applicant for amending the comp plan.
Correct.
They're just a committee that was formed to help us figure out so that we could
It
recommend.
provided
something
you
to
the raw material that you can then take.
right.
And
So,
then
I don't
ultimately,
even think at this point, it doesn't even raise to an ordinance or a regulatory action because that they're not in a position. They think they are. Somebody thinks they are,
Mhm.
but they're not.
Okay.
So we haven't gotten there yet. Once we dissect and whatever, or throw out and revise or whatever, then at some point, we will either make something on the Selly and the Sagal and the other committee areas. We'll make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for that area in this language. But until we do that, you know, because this body hasn't done it yet. And so far, it's interesting because the Land Use Planning Act says the Planning and Zoning Commission will amend it. So therefore, I would think that the quote applicant for those actions would be the Planning and Zoning Commission, not necessarily just the county.
correct?
It's, could go both
I mean,
ways.
anybody
One is
can
the same.
apply. Statute allows for anybody to apply.
Right, right.
For
But in
this
this case,
specific-
it says specifically, we're dealing with
Right.
area-wide or county-wide comp plan update.
And, right, and there is some, we've had some ideas as well to consider some new analysis, some things that we'd like to do to gather more information that might help with the Sally Valley plan and some of the
Yeah,
others. So,
yeah. So again, I mean, these folks, I'm very thankful that we made the committees. I think that was a good attempt to get a better feel for the local areas.
Right.
And help us out. Yes, each two of us live in one of those areas, but that's 2 compared to 12, at least that, let alone thousands that live out in these areas, so.
Right.
So I think it's gonna help us. And there's no guarantee that what they've said, we're gonna say, yep, we're gonna pass that forward. You can do all kinds of changes and legitimately so.
Right, you guys are ultimately responsible for whatever recommendation you give. You could do nothing with the document, or you could recommend a flat denial, or you could recommend approval with any or all changes that you put into it. So you have the discretion, broad discretion to do. You're not bound by any recommendation that they gave you, just as board's not bound by your recommendation.
So
It's kind of like just that one shade.
It's another.
We're not gonna,
relationship is similar.
I don't want these guys and us to assume liability for anything until it's gone. Everybody has
Right.
seen it.
Yeah, you want to just reserve your judgment and then, of course, but if I'm able to answer some of these questions for you guys, maybe that'll help in the interim or help get you at least started on the right path. So hopefully I've got some homework that I can work on for you guys and try to get it done and back to you before the next.
So even to go off what Matt's saying, when we think we've hammered out good language for a sub area or a whole county or whatever, then it sounds like that needs to have legal review to ensure that there is not a regulatory taking.
That very well might be true. I just don't want to give you that. I don't want
I mean, that's,
to raise my right hand and swear when I'm not ready to do it yet, so.
but it does seem like that, of course, that's what's intended there, because sure, I mean, and you've addressed this before, certain areas, if it comes out that way, could result in a diminishing of the density in an area, followed by zoning, which could be a down zone. That has, I believe, been determined before by the courts and is not a regulatory taking. But there are certain individuals out there, one of them sits on the Samuels committee, Sally committee, who does believe that it is. So.
All right. Back to what Brian was saying about wait until we have all 4 of these sub areas. One of the things I believe that we need to do, because I know Sable's not, I know Sally didn't address the housing element. Now the housing element, we all have discussed it so many times that we actually came up with that last question we asked every interviewee was, how would you address affordable housing? We got answers all across the board. And there's a difference between low income housing that's subsidized and affordable housing that's conventional. And that's more along the lines of what I was thinking of. Just sitting here tonight, I got in and pulled it up. We're down to countywide for 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses, 68 listings countywide, and that includes the cities, with a median price of $995,000. Now, those figures are, there's about out of the 68, there's 10 or 15 in that $2 to $10 million. So, those need to be taken off, but still even taking those off, it's around $600,000. And the problem with that is the Department of Labor, that the last study they done was in 2018, our median sold price was $226,000 with a median household income of 46. The last report that I looked at yesterday for Bonner County estimate is 49,000 median income, but that's median household. That's household income. But the problem is that median sales prices has jumped tremendously.
It's because South Point denied that subdivision. So.
Oh, right, exactly. That's yeah, exactly. Right. So the housing, I view that as a true crisis. Now, none of these sub areas are addressing that. And I think we need to go ahead and look at those elements that none of those groups are looking at. We need to come up with that and look at those first in primary, because it may be in conflict with some of those other plans they have. And then we have to decide which evil we need to take care of.
So with that,
Yeah.
is there any, I don't know what is coming towards us, but is there another, obviously it's not gonna happen during the holidays. It'll be next year. Obviously, we're gonna be dealing with all this. Could we do another workshop on the housing?
Yeah.
So we can look at that element, and, because we've been kicking the can down the road here for too many years about housing.
Yeah, it's still in draft form, as far as I know.
Yes.
It is in draft form, and that was, previous board shredded the thing and didn't like it, so that's why that happened.
I mean, when Claire was here, we were working on it. And it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's been a long time.
2012.
Yep, that's because we're quite frankly working on all these other things, and those have definitely gotten set aside. We have some ideas that we'd like to go over with you.
So we need to address that.
Stumbled onto an interesting fact. I pulled up the latest census data, which is extrapolated, obviously. And I pulled out all the cities, and I looked at the gross population of the county. 34% of the total county population lives in incorporated areas.
Right.
The rest lives in the unincorporated area.
In an RV. Yep.
He's saying I heard
Down by the-
You know, we're dealing with the bulk of the population in Bonner County.
We are.
So it surprised me a little bit. I didn't think, and then you look at the growth curves, of course,
Well, I mean,
and the cities are like this, and the county's like this.
we're close to 1,200 building permits, and the cities are at 50,
How's that?
because they don't have any room to grow.
Residential building permits, or is that BLP?
All those, yeah.
The BLP.
No, the BOPs are at 9 something,
And exempt structures, right?
952 or 958.
I have one final question for you.
Shoot.
On these because we're talking about recommendations. Now, I think our next meeting is going to be the
The
November 5th. Now, that is the
mining
mining
ordinance.
ordinance. Okay, that brings back me. If this is only going to be a recommendation that we're making to the county commissioners, do I need to recuse myself?
I think the wise answer is probably yes. You probably do. I'd have to go back there. There are specific questions you need to consult with me, and we need to make an analysis of that. And so I need to go to refer to the precise language in the code. If we want to do that, my initial blush is yes. But we can. That's one more thing I can look at, and I'll get back to you in private, individually.
Okay.
With that. If you determine that you have a sufficient personal interest at stake, that it's going to, change your objectivity or perceptions of that, then usually the safe course is to recuse.
Okay. And that brings us to the second question. At what point?
Last one. Everyone,
Last
know
one.
it. That's it.
Because I have-
Hold your peace.
I have it right here.
I bring donuts next week.
Is that it says I'm not allowed to participate. I get that. Participation according to Idaho code is deliberation. Now, if you look at our schedule and our procedures, we don't deliberate until after all public comments been taken. Is that the proper time to recuse myself? You can look that up.
I got to look that one up. In practice, typically when I've seen someone in a decision-making capacity want to recuse themselves, they do so at the outset, just to have a
And
clean
the
break.
question is asked at the beginning of each.
Do you have a conflict? Do you have, and if you have to disclose one there, then that's, I think, best practices, that's the best place to do it.
It's interesting because recusing yourself is a personal decision.
It is.
Not the chair can't say, get out of here.
No, that's, I think
It's
it
a
is.
very interesting setup.
That's why you're held personally liable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a question.
And I think doing from the onset, if there's people in the audience who have a strong opinion, they're not sitting there wondering, why hasn't that person done something? Why are they sitting there? You wipe that off the slate right away.
Yeah.
But again, that may not be the exact legal standard. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm sorry to punt so many of these tonight, guys. Usually I like to be a little more responsive, but since you've had some really, really precise questions, I want to make sure that I answer them in an equally precise manner. So Matt, I'll make sure I'll shoot you an email on that topic because I have had to deal with that issue with commissioners in the past. And so I've done the analysis, we'll make sure we check off all the boxes.
So if the asphalt plant comes up in that mining ordinance thing, we're not allowed that because it's being mitigated, correct?
I would say that you want to focus on the subject matter of
The mining
the
ordinance.
mining ordinance itself. Don't,
It probably will.
I certainly, that's a fair assumption. Focus on the subject matter in front of you. Don't worry about any particular
Anything to do with interstate.
application of the ordinance, because it is going to be countywide. I think that's probably the more appropriate way to go.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilson? Okay, being so, it is 7:04. This meeting is going to be continued November 5th, 2020 at Bonner County Administration Building, 1500 Highway 2, first floor conference room. Meeting adjourned.
Good. Thanks.